guess I should smile and be more friendly. Okay, if you look at history, and I always say, let's not, we can't afford history. We can't afford history, as in, you look at the good from history, you celebrate that. But you also look at the bad from history, and you don't replicate that, you fix that. Everybody knows about the Civil War that happened in the States. We know why it happened. It's been sugar washed. But most of the people that fought, there's a lot of talk about the Confederate flag and all of that stuff that I won't get into detail. Most of the people that fought because they needed the money. That's the truth. They were not getting income from slave plantations, and the economy was transitioning along with the Constitution. Understand, the Constitution was made for everybody, yes, but there is always a clause behind everything. That's why there have been and will always be amendments as progress is made, right? So, to be fully honest, lawmakers were rich. They came from well-known families. Education was a privilege. Universities are training institutions, and they were used to train the rich. It was very difficult for even the brightest peasant to enlist in a university. That's what America tried to change. They tried to change the concept of peasantry that had existed within Europe, not just Britain, as everybody keeps pointing the finger at Britain. It existed in Russia as well, right? We all know the Berlin Wall fell. Now, as the Constitution is looked at, people look at the first draft. There were many drafts before the final draft. The Constitution was made to be changed by those who come after, made to be changed to progress. The Constitution was made by trained, well-refined, known people. We all know the Declaration of Independence, the people that signed there. One of the people happens to be a scientist, brilliant scientist, Benjamin Franklin. And this just gives you a background of the fact that these were visionaries. Use the example of J.D. Rockefeller, how he basically monopolized oil, and history started to remember him as an evil man. History started to remember him as someone who belonged to some sort of supernatural clan, and as it goes on, you have things like the Illuminati, because there are people that are capable of what others are not. Now, the whole talk of guns and how executive action might be, let's say, not domineering but dictatorial. It is what people elect a person to do, to say this is the direction, and when people aren't listening, enforce that direction. What people should do is point out the harm, which most cannot. Here's an example of things. Guns have changed as technology has changed. The technology to actually put fingerprint recognition and tracing capabilities on a gun is not difficult. In fact, if implemented, as opposed to selling cheap guns, because cheap guns can be sold easily and in mass amounts, and cheap guns are the ones that end up in the hands of ISIS, the very threat that people are complaining about is supported by the very thing that certain things have been blabbering and trying to fight against: background checks. When you export guns, what are the background checks? Who are they going to? This is now the bigger picture. You wanted to go into bigger detail. So if this rule applies within a society, it's much easier for it to be enforced outside when you export your guns or your weapons. These export manufacturers, this is big money. They have a lot of money riding on this, and this is the behind the scenes that most people don't know about, that they're trying to protect. But forget that. Like I said, if a gun can be traced, like a phone can be traced, even if criminals find a way to disable it, if it's disabled, then that gun will end up being investigated. Who disabled it? Why did they disable it? Like I always say, if you're not a criminal, what are you afraid of? If a child takes a gun, they know how to cock a gun. Children are smart, but they can't pull the trigger because it doesn't belong to them. This does not have to apply to every gun or to everything, or this rule does not have to be general, but this is a general example of what can be done in the future. Because there are places where people use guns to hunt. Then there are places that are protected by police, but police are in danger because criminals have access to very dangerous guns. And in fact, police are scared to enter certain areas because they know this fact. Like someone said, when there is gang violence, gang shootouts, and all of that people want to ignore, when that happens, there is a lot of corporate cops involved. A lot of people let it go along and let it happen. So the argument against this should be logical. It should be broad. It should be progressive, and it should speak of the future. Right? You cannot stop crime from happening because people can snap. Right? But you can make it easier to find people prone to violence. You can make it easier to find people who have track records of being violent, and you can also have a better chance of finding out whether these individuals purchasing these guns need them and why. Let's say someone needs a gun because they are being threatened. How will people know? And should this be allowed? Should we allow people to be blackmailed in the dark? This does not have to be unveiled to people because information gets abused by criminals. That's why it's confidential. That's why it remains confidential. So what world do we want children to grow up in, as opposed to what world do we have in the present? A lot of talk about climate change. It's okay today, and you're saying don't Think about 100 years from now, and you're talking about 2 degrees, 3 degrees, 4 degrees, and this comes from people who don't know the science, who don't want to know the science. They are speaking money, and someone that is speaking with dollars in their mouth needs to be ignored by people, because they are not speaking for you, they are speaking for a few. And people elect people that will speak for them, not people that will agree with them on everything. If that was the case, there would be complete chaos. The world is adapting, the world is changing, and nature especially does not need our permission. Never has. And a lot of times we forget the progress made in terms of rehabilitation, but the progress not made in terms of rehabilitation. Progress needs to be the key. Progress always has to be the key. Progress will always be the key. Progress will always scare people. And that can't be helped, nor can it be changed. People don't want progress because of what they stand to lose. And progress does end up leading to equality. And the more equal the world becomes, the more dangerous it becomes for some. Right? So it's not about pointing fingers. It's not about saying these people are bad, those people are bad. Everybody is trying to protect their interest in terms of trying to protect their families, trying to protect their neighbors, their communities, their country. But somehow, at some point, you need to understand, if you want to help yourself out, then you have to help someone else out, so that it will be easier for you to push the weight or the boulder or whatever it is that you need in order for you to progress. And a lot of restrictions exist, and because of these restrictions, a lot of meaningful things cannot be done. But there are a lot of meaningful ways for these things to be done, and they will be done. And it's loosening these restrictions, and when they've been loosened and they've been made more flexible, it'll be time for personal contributions, I guess. So I guess I kind of understand the whole, why should I go to college when I can go to college on the go and save the world? That's coming from a lot of young people, because things are evolving like that, and we all have to adapt. Anyway, I've been in a lot of pain, man, so I don't have to go into detail about that, but next time